Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I'm going to share some reptilian encounters with you. Before we get into these encounters, though, a couple links. You know what? I might throw in a Dogman encounter. Yeah, I probably will. But onto the links. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook version, is available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. They were written by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Links to those are in the description as well. Now, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Within the realm of cryptozoology and encounters with strange creatures, some accounts are certainly weirder than others. There are those reports that describe something that lies not only firmly within the bizarre, but also seems to lie totally outside of biological possibility. Outside of nature, propelling these cases way out into the extreme reaches of the fringe. Certainly, among these various reports of humanoid creatures that can only be described as some sort of lizard bipedal man, these accounts are incredibly bizarre, often unsettling, and which serve to defy any easy classification or reason. By far, one of the most well-known of the mysterious lizard men is that of a massive bipedal reptilian creature supposedly native to the U.S. state of South Carolina, where it is called the Lizard Man of Scape or Swamp, the Lizard Man of Lee County, and the Monster of Bishopville. The first sighting of the creature was made in 1987 when George Hallman Jr. was riding his bicycle in the vicinity of Scape or Swamp, when he stopped near a stream to take a rest and have a cigarette. As he sat there, he would claim that what he first thought was a log had suddenly stood up to reveal itself as a huge reptilian humanoid standing at an impressive 7 to 8 feet in height, with red glowing eyes. The monster stood there merely staring at him until a car passed and sent the creature stalking back into the swamp. This would not be the last sighting of the swamp's lizard man, and a far more widely publicized report would further push it into public consciousness. In the early hours of June 29th, 1988, a young man named Christopher Davis was driving along the dark and remote road through the woods of Scape or Swamp in the area near Bishopville when he got a flat tire and got out to fix it. As soon as the spare tire was on, Davis would be met with a terrifying sight, as a very large and apparently very aggressive reptilian mysterious monster dashed from the gloomy wilderness to give him an experience he would never forget. Davis said, "This is what happened. I looked back and saw something running across the field toward me. It was about 25 yards away, and I saw red eyes glowing. I ran back to the car and locked it. The thing grabbed the door handle. I could only see it from the neck down. It had 3 big fingers, long black nails, and green rough skin. It was strong and angry. I looked in my mirror and saw a blur of green running. I could see its toes, and then it jumped on my roof of the car. I thought I heard a grunt, and then I could see its fingers through the front windshield, where they curled around the roof. I sped up and swerved to shake the creature off. After the menacing creature was gone, Davis sped home as fast as he could, and would notice that not only was his rearview mirror totally destroyed, but that there was various deep gashes along the roof of the vehicle, and some of the chrome on the fenders had been torn away. He told the whole dramatic story to his dad, who then called the sheriff. Listened Truesdale, who was more than a bit skeptical, although the damage to the vehicle was just as Davis said. Truesdale suspected that it had been the work of some pranksters, and the boy had made up the whole story of the swamp lizard man. He was so suspicious of the outlandish story that he made Davis take a lie detector test. And he passed. Interestingly, it would turn out just a few weeks after Davis's encounter, there would be other similar damaged vehicles, although in this case the perpetrator was never witnessed. On July 14th, 1988, a couple in Bishopville named Tom and Mary Wayne reported that their car had been rather viciously vandalized, with the sides of the doors gnashed and dented, the hood ornament twisted and totaled, and pieces of the engine apparently torn out with frazzled wires protruding from gaping wounds. Even stranger was that parts of the car even seemed as if they had been gnawed on or chewed on, as if by a very large and angry wild animal. All around the car were found massive three-toed tracks, which authorities would make plaster casts of and state did not appear to be from any known wildlife in the area. After this, reports of the mysterious lizard man of Scape Ore Swamp would begin to come in at a regular pace, with full 12 sightings made during the summer of '88, as well as numerous reports of something shrieking and howling in the night, and cases of vehicles maimed or damaged by something extremely powerful, all within a 5-kilometer radius of Scape Ore Swamp in the direct vicinity of Bishopville. One of these sightings was made by a teenager named Rodney Nolf and Shane Stokes, who saw it lumber across the road as they were out on a double date, and another was from a construction worker named George Holman, who claimed the lizard man had attacked him as he drew water from a well. At one point, a deputy and state trooper who were investigating one of these reports allegedly find 40-gallon drums smashed and tossed about as if they were toys, as well as uprooted saplings and trees with thick swaths broken off, seemingly by hand. The two authorities would find three-toed footprints measuring 14 by 8 inches, meandering all around the scene. One of the most well-known reports from the summer came from a witness from Shaw Air Force Base named Ken Orr. On August 5th, '88, Orr claimed that he encountered the lizard man on Highway 15 and had actually managed to shoot it. In this case, there was even physical evidence brought forward in the form of an alleged bloody and scales from the wounded beast. When authorities sought to charge him for carrying a pistol without a permit, he retracted his statement. It is unknown just what happened to the supposed physical evidence. This was one of the accounts that encouraged radio station WCOS to offer a reward of $1 million to anyone who could bring the beast in alive or dead, which brought in all manner of monster hunters traipsing about the area and loaded with weapons. Although the sightings dropped off somewhere after the summer of '88, they did not stop altogether, and there have been sporadic sightings of the creature ever since. In the '90s, there were a report by Robert Cooper of the Army Corps of Engineers, who claimed to have seen the creature that looked half man, half dinosaur running alongside the road. In 2004, a girl claimed that a huge lizard-like humanoid had leapt from the river to try to grab her. The following year, in 2005, there was an account of a woman in Newberry, South Carolina, who reportedly saw 2 of the creatures with glowing red eyes outside of her rural home. Most recently, in 2008, in Bishopville, a couple, Bob and Dixie Rawson, claimed that their minivan had been mauled by some sort of animal, leaving huge gnashes and heavy damage to the sides and grill, and that there had been found a dead cow and coyote in a nearby field. What is the lizard man of Scape Ore Swamp? And if it ever was real, is it still out there? No one knows. While the swamp might be a perfect place one might imagine a lizard man to appear, there have been many other reports that don't exactly seem to be quite as inviting for such creatures. One such account originates from none other than the Sonoran Desert of Arizona in the United States, where February of 2014, 3 mountain bicyclists were making their way along a challenging 17-mile Old Pueblo race course just east of Tucson. The course is apparently a grueling one with dry, withered moonscape of land to traverse, and Packing water and food is a necessity, if one wants to make it through alive. At around the halfway point, they came across something perhaps none of them had ever expected to see out in these sun-blasted Badlands. And one of the witnesses would say that this encounter, we had been riding for about, 9 hours, taking breaks now and then. Then Michael says he needs to stop for a minute. We're waiting for him to finish when all of a sudden we see this lone figure walking across the trail. It's maybe 6 feet tall, very, very skinny, with an awkward gait like a monkey, or a man with a disease, almost robotic. Then all I remember about Michael is him saying, "What the hell is that?" or something like that. But he sounded far away. He probably used a different word instead of hell. Thing is, we had somehow walked a little toward the thing. Don't ask me why. Maybe to look at it better, not knowing what it was. The creature stopped, and it made eye contact with me, and I could see it nearby. The eyes were kind of like a snake, but black with yellow stripe in the middle. It had green and red scales on its face and head. The red color was kind of like the same as the desert sand, and it looked like it had a sandy texture as well. It didn't have a nose, only 2 holes. I couldn't see any ears or hair. A red mouth that looked like it had blood around it, but it didn't look like it was bleeding. It looked like a pattern. It reminded me of a chameleon, but it looked like a person as well. The odd creature then stood up to its full height and apparently raised its long arms to gesture at them, all the while making an unearthly chattering sound before scampering off like a lizard trying to hide. The unsettled men excitedly talked about what to do. They decided to just keep going and finish the course. However, the strange encounter did not leave them, and none would forget it. One of the witnesses would later say, "When you read these stories online or watch them on TV, well, you think, man, these people are crazy, on meds or something like that, in need of attention, who knows, but this has made me a believer. There has to be more of them out there. If there's one, there's got to be at least 2, right? I know most people won't believe a word I say. That's the way I used to be. I don't blame them at all. But they are out there. Now, I'm not saying it's an alien or a chupacabra or anything like that. All I'm saying is I have never seen anything like it in my life. I'm no biologist, so what do I know? There have been even earlier reports of such creatures in the desert of Nevada, such as one given by Cherry Hinkle on Henderson, Nevada in 1977. She claims that her 13-year-old son had gone out to explore the Black Mountains, which is littered with all manner of abandoned mines and caves. They would then hike out across the desert landscape and climb the foothills of the mountain until they found a cave they felt like peeking into. The narrow entrance forced them to crawl in on their stomachs using their pocket flashlights to chase back the darkness, and they eventually came to a circular room about 9 feet across. There they found a pit in the ground in which led some branches haphazardly formed a crude ladder. As they explored the room, they heard what sounded like voices and a far-off humming of some sort of machinery. Looking around further, they apparently came across a rusty metal door deeper in an adjacent tunnel, with a rod of some sort lying nearby, which seemed to be made of some kind of aluminum-like material, and engravings on the side. As they examined the rod and the strange doorway, they heard some sort of guttural voice approach and decided to hurry to the entrance from which they had come. Taking the bizarre rod with them as they approached the entrance, they then heard what sounded like a door they had seen creak open, after which there was an ominous growl of some sort of greenish humanoid creature that emerged from the cave. The boys then turned and ran as fast as they could from the place, later telling Sherry about the strange incident and showing her the rod they found. She would say of this, It looked at the bizarre symbols engraved in the 3-inch section of the rod. It was just symbols, like spirals, circles of different sizes, a few triangles, and a few unknown symbols. There were no levers or buttons, and the cap at the end didn't seem to move. The rod, with its professionally created symbols, and smooth to the touch. I knew it was not a toy, but nothing I recognized. It seems like it was a nice rod, and the lizard man apparently wanted it back. That evening, as the family slept, something very strange indeed happened. Sherry would say of the sequence of events. It must have been around 2 a.m. when Mark shook me, whispering harshly that someone was trying to get into his bedroom window. I hoped it was just a nightmare or his nerves were still on edge. Quietly, we slipped into his bedroom and listened to the sounds of scraping at the window edge. He was not mistaken. In the light of the moon, I could make out a silhouette, head and shoulders of a man. I was alone with my 4 kids, no husband to protect us, so I grabbed my flashlight, suddenly tossed the curtains open to face the man. There was a glare from the flashlight on the window, but past the glare, I could clearly see a large head with ridges on top, other ridges on its cheekbones, and the glow of golden eyes. Mark and I just stood still, unmoved, both with fear and shock. This creature didn't move either, its hand still poised in the attempt to pry the window open. Its hand was large, with webbed, rough, gnarly-looking fingers and powerful claws. After a couple minutes, not seconds, but long, agonizing minutes with our hearts pounding, I knew I had to do something. One hand still holding the flashlight beam on its face and my eyes still locked into those golden eyes. I fumbled around in the dark with my other hand, hoping to find something to use as a weapon, if needed. It glanced at my hand, looked back into my eyes. It turned its head a little, as if he was asking a question. It slightly opened its lipless mouth, displaying 4 of its pointed teeth, and suddenly it turned and ran off into the desert. She later would surmise that the bizarre creature had come for its rod, and so she and her husband Mark decided that they would return to the cave. They all hiked the way out to the area where the boys had found the object to put it back at the entrance. According to the report, they just left it there and headed back. There was no further mention of what happened after that, or if the irate lizard man came for them again or not. Were these creatures aliens, interdimensional beings, or a product of the imagination? It's hard to say. Other reports are hard to really categorize as any particular phenomenon. And one that certainly seems to evade any simple explanation is an account from Northern California in 2014. The anonymous witness claimed that she was sitting with her dog on the doorstep of her home in California when she apparently saw a man walking up the sidewalk at approximately 3 a.m. while smoking a cigarette. The stranger reportedly passed by to give the witness a nod before continuing along his way, walking around the corner and disappearing. A week later, the same man allegedly showed up one evening at the same time again, and this time they would exchange some words. She would say of a weird encounter, "I saw him around 3 a.m. again. He smiled and said very softly, meekly, 'Hello,' bowed his head. I returned the greeting. It was small, rural farming town. No one was out, and I could hear his hard soles make a clatter. In the still of the night, the odd stranger would come by yet again exactly a week after this, at the same time early in the morning, and she explained that this time she could see that rather man, he was sort of reptilian, with empty eye sockets and a slit for a mouth. The startled witness said, I slept with the double front doors open in my studio-type home for ventilation. At 3 a.m, I heard the man walking by. He had a reptilian face. He was wearing a hooded jacket. We both stared at each other for about 10 seconds. He had a brow ridge. The scales looked like those of a snake and had a bluish color to it. I felt it was the same man, but was seeing a reptilian being. The man then walked away and was reported wearing the same clattered shoes he had previously worn. Who was this apparent shape-shifting reptile humanoid? Was the woman just making this all up? It's a weird case, to be sure. There have been other reports from places other than the United States, and one of the stranger of these happened in 2015. Sundung Cave of Vietnam, which is a vast cave system that has been talked about numerous times, and which actually has produced a fair number of reports of creatures. Some photos have been taken by a visitor who described a devil-like creature, which appeared to be reptilian humanoid. From Romania, there is an account of a retired military general named Emil Sternu, who speaks of an odd account of a reptilian humanoid experience by a close friend of his near the Carpathian Mountains. The friend had apparently been traveling back from vacation through the area when he pulled over to fill his tank up with gas. There, at the gas station, he saw a brown Humvee with the engine running, which he thought was odd since it was very early in the morning and no one else had been on the road. As the witness paid for its gas, he headed back to his own vehicle. He noticed the front door of the Hummer was wide open, and that within it sat a reptilian being wearing nothing but a pair of military boots. The frightened witness rushed to his car and looked back to see the creature glaring at him. After which he had gotten into the car and drove off as fast as he could. It must be mentioned that General Stranu was frequently come forward with odd reports of out-of-place archaeology discoveries and other anomalies, which he said were being covered up. He's also the director of Special Situation and Research Center on UFOs, the founder of Association of Study of Unidentified Aerospace Phenomenon, and the author of several books on unexplained phenomenon. So one wonders, what is going on there? Today's second part of the upload, I've got a Dogman encounter that I'd like to share. My name is Brandon. I live in a neighborhood called Kellogg Creek. About 4 or 5 months ago, me and my friend Justin were messing around with some fireworks down by the creek. It started getting dark fast. I thought I heard some bushes move, so I looked around. I could have sworn I saw a pair of reflective eyes. I didn't think much of it, so I just kept talking to Justin. Now, I think the light from Justin's cell phone was causing the thing's eyes to reflect like a dog's. Justin started freaking out because he heard something also. All of a sudden, I'm standing there, and Justin comes running from behind me, screaming, "Run! Just run, now!" I ran. I didn't quite know why we were running at first, but as we were almost out of the woods, I heard something chasing us. Turns out Justin had heard something growl, a low-pitched territorial growl. He had also seen something stand up. It was tall, muscular, slender, and hairy. It apparently followed us up to my house as well because my dog started going postal at something in the backyard. That was my first encounter with the beast, as I've come to call it. The second encounter was not in the woods, but nearby the same place. We were walking down the road and we heard some noises in the woods. We stopped and got a little scared, so we started to walk back up and then jogged, then sprinted. Justin saw something move through someone's yard. We made it up to his house, and as it turned around, the door was locked. So we stood there as Justin told me that he had just seen something jumping from tree to tree in the backyard. He heard a low growl, and we started sprinting up the road to my house, and the thing followed us and ended up in my neighbor's backyard. The beast activity had quieted down for a while after that, except for the lost pet signs and that started popping up all over the neighborhood. However, Friday, I posted some signs up around the neighborhood saying beware and asking people if they had any info on the beast. I put a picture of a werewolf I found to give an image to what I thought was out there and my cell phone number. I've been getting calls off the hook, mostly from local potheads, but some were pretty legit. In fact, one of the more intriguing calls was a lady that had pictures of a strange creature she had seen around lately. The most frightening, however, called me at about 1 in the morning. I was trying to get sleep when my phone rang. I picked it up and answered to a teenager about 17 or 18. He told me that he was going 35 down Kellogg when he saw something running beside his car, and it was keeping up with him. He didn't even live in the area. He was just driving his friend home. I asked him, "Dude, you realize what time it is right now, right?" He said he knew it was late, but his friend insisted he called me. He described this thing as big, very well built upper body and skinny legs. I'm now 99% sure that the residents of Kellogg Creek and the surrounding area are in danger of this Dogman and possibly being harmed by it. Alright guys, there's today's upload. I am going to follow up with Brandon and see what he's got cooking. Hopefully I can get him on the show and he can share some information with us because it sounds like it's valuable. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's second upload, and thanks for always listening, guys. Have a good night.